and welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Eichten from Denver, Colorado, where the Wolves lost by 11 points in Game 1 of the NBA playoffs of the Denver Nuggets. With me is Leo Sun. Leo, how you doing?
Feels weird, but it was a game. Anytime it's a morning game, or at least to me, it was at 12:30 here Pacific. So it's always a little weird. Like, all right, let me turn this on, and I never expect anything good in the morning if the Wolves are playing. But it was fun to at least watch a game that meant something, and it was interesting to say the least on how the players responded and how they looked out there. So overall, doing okay that it's over, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this kind of a lot in the lead up to the series where we'll see how it plays out and all that. But like the fact that the Wolves have made the playoffs 5 straight times and are coming into a season where they're not dead on arrival. Maybe we'll argue maybe they were, whatever. But like they had a chance to win the series, obviously, which wasn't the case, say, a few years ago back when they played Houston in that first round series. Like that's fun in of itself. I thought a lot of the aspects of this game tonight or this afternoon was fun. So that's the positives. But I think we'll spend most of this pod talking about some less positive aspects of the game. But yeah, Wolves lose 116-105. Kind of the game script was first quarter was awesome. I thought that was the version of this team I thought we've kind of been waiting for all season. They've shown it in spurts. They've shown it a game here, a quarter there. I thought that first quarter was exactly what you'd want to see. Defense, ball movement, playing with aggression, all that stuff. And then like it has so often this season, they could not sustain it for any length of time. I mean, I think the big turning point to me was at the beginning of the second quarter. They're up 10. Aaron Gordon's on the bench with 3 fouls. This is a chance like the Wolves push it to 20. Like that's what they should have done. They should have at the very least kept that 10-point lead and continue to go, and the exact opposite happened. They lose the second and third quarters combined by 22 points. They fight back late in the fourth quarter, but they just never really executed at all down the stretch of the game. I tweeted it out, and I think to me, before we start breaking into the X's and O's, the individual parts of the game, here was kind of my takeaway on where this team is at right now. So this is my tweet. Our segment is reading tweets, which is always fantastic podcast work. The Wolves' ability to, quote, flip the switch was the topic du jour coming into the series. One game into the series, the answer to that is no. They can't flip the switch. Or they didn't flip the switch. Not a horrendous performance from the Wolves, but one that reminded me a lot more of their regular season than a leveling up. And that's what I thought this game represented. For them to win the series, they were going to have to perform at a level that more or less outside of a game here, game there, that they haven't really all year. And at least one game into the series, we'll talk about how meaningful one game is, but at least 48 minutes into the series, this was, to me, the team that we saw for 82 games in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're on point with a lot of that stuff. I think can the Wolves flip it on? I mean, the first quarter, it looked like they did flip it on. This was the team that you said that we felt like when everything's firing, like that's how they should look. And you're getting positive minutes out of Mike Conley and Jaden's aggressive, and playing through even early adversity with some of the foul trouble the team itself was experiencing early on, and they just let off that pedal. And I think we saw that so much even in the latter half of the season, where the Wolves would play good for a half, and then it would just take one bad quarter for things to really go off the rails. In this case, it was 2 bad quarters. I mean, the second quarter, they got outscored by, I think it was 12, and they got outscored by 10 in the second quarter, and then outscored by 12 in the third quarter. But really, it was that second quarter where they gave up 39 points, a lot of it at the free throw line. And foul issues have been a thing for the Wolves all season. They don't seem to really know how to toe the line between aggression and just going a little bit too far. And I don't want to spend too much time on the officiating. Obviously, it was quite frustrating for the Wolves to get into the bonus less than 3 minutes into the game. But they were calling it ticky-tack both ways, I would say. Just the Wolves don't have as many, I guess you could say, guys that can market and publicize their fouls a little better than the others. And because of that, they kind of got punished for it, and they just couldn't really get back into it. Which is not even actually true now that I think about it. I mean, they did get back into it in the fourth quarter. They got within 2 points really late in a game where at that point it felt like they had no reason really being in it at all. And so it was good to see some sort of grit coming back. I mean, you see Dante not giving up as he never does, just hustling. He stopped a 4-on-1 sequence on his own at some point in the fourth quarter, and then even had Io coming to life, hitting the three, still aggressive in the fourth quarter. They really push it back up, but the game really kind of went on its head there, where Wolves were within two, and I believe it was Jamal Murray that fired up a near half court heave at the end to avoid a shot clock violation. On TV, from my vantage point, it looked like it clearly did not hit the rim. It looked like it just rocketed off the
Yeah,
backboard. Yeah, it looked.
yeah, I saw that live, and that was the corner of the arena. That was my basket there. I was shocked that they determined that hit the rim, but also I didn't see any of like the Wolves players going, "What the hell?" So it must have clipped the rim.
Yeah, upon replay on TV on the broadcast, they did show it, and it did just
Did it?
barely graze. Yeah, it grazed the rim,
Okay. Okay.
and so I think that was close enough to it, Saul. But because of that, they ended up getting a dunk out of that. Aaron Gordon
Mhm.
was wide open because Julius Randle had leaked out on the other side. More on Julius later. And then on the other side, Rudy has a putback that, by all accounts, live, it looked like it was good. And then upon review, they obviously deemed it with the Hawkeye cameras or whatever that it was just barely over the cylinder, which was, I know, I hate to say it's just a tough break, but it was a tough break on both ends of the court, back to back. And at that point, the game was kind of out of the hands. It was basically a 4-point swing there, and it was a multiple possession game, and the Wolves really never got close again. But all that to say, there were some positives to the game. It wasn't outright just they got outclassed from start to finish, but it was a game one on the road, and we have a lot of questions, a lot of things to talk about for sure.
Yeah, the officiating, I wouldn't say that it was bad, and certainly I would not say it determined or even affected the outcome of the game. It was weird. I would say that. There's a lot of late calls, which I'd rather have a late correct call than an early wrong one, obviously. Um, I thought I have to go back and watch this. I thought the flagrant on Jaden, I did
Yeah,
not agree with that call.
yeah,
I thought Jamal Murray landed forward, like Jaden did not step in his landing zone. Jamal Murray jumped forward. And then it's especially frustrating when someone I forgive me for not knowing which account this was, but someone clipped together Ant hitting a jumper or shooting a jumper,
yeah.
and I believe Spencer Jones was in his landing area. And to me, the I'll go back and watch these, and maybe if it confirms my opinion, I'll tweet it out. But like I thought, like the biggest difference between those two plays is Jamal Murray flopped and Ant didn't. And John Krasinski had a good reply that was like, Ant just doesn't do that, and I wonder if he'll ever turn to the dark side on that. Um, that was one thing. If we Before we get off the officiating and the flopping stuff, that was one thing. Denver flops a lot more than they did 2 years ago. And to me, the blame for that is not with Denver. It's it's what gets rewarded in the NBA. It just flatly is. You get rewarded for embellishing calls. I wish that wasn't the case. And if you're trying to win at a high level, at some level, you got to do it. So that was a small frustration, while also admitting in no way it impacted the game. I think both teams got frustrated by it, which sometimes is a is a marker of fair officiating. If both teams are frustrated by you, not all the time, but I thought the Wolves' ability to they were clearly frustrated by it. I think Adam and got teed up. They were both frustrated by it. I think some players let it affect them more. Rudy kind of sent as a team, he said after the game, like, we have to do a better job. One, like fouling and like just not fouling the other team so they don't get points. But also he said it without saying it that like they got a better whistle than us. Um, and his point wasn't as much to complain about that. His point was like, we just have to deal with that. That's the reality of the situation. And whether you feel like that, like either it doesn't even matter he was kind of saying, it doesn't matter why they're getting more foul calls. We have to mentally deal with that better. And I think they did to a certain extent. I think they did do that. They did claw back into the game. I thought if they had played poor, like the fourth quarter could have looked like the previous two quarters and the Wolves lose by this game by 20, but they did claw back and ultimately didn't make enough plays to come close to winning. But yeah, it was a weird game in that sense. But I thought, other than like a flagrant, and obviously you can find a bad call in any game, but like I thought it was more due to the Wolves' lack of defensive composure more than it was like any officiating thing.
Yeah, just from watching it on the broadcast, it was on it was on Prime Video, and It was very stark to see the difference between the fouls were there, but the Nuggets were certainly complaining a lot more. I mean, Jokic is a known complainer, right? Like his hands go up to his face every time that there's a foul called, and so the optics of it looks like they're complaining a lot more than the Wolves are, and it is what it is. But I will say that one player does tend to get to, and I've kind of called him out for this all year. Jaden McDaniels. He played really well in the beginning, like I said, getting through the adversity of that bad flagrant foul early, the bad call at least, and he scored 10 points in the first quarter on great efficiency. And then he just kind of lost it in the third quarter when Jamal Murray was basically getting touch fouls. I mean, he was getting a SGA type of whistle there. You can see Jaden getting frustrated, and he went 0 for 5 to start the third quarter. A lot of them were really hard shots until he finally put back like this one weird, like, possession where everyone kind of got scuffled up, and then he just like two hand shoves Jokic, who kind of sells it towards the stanchion, and he gets teed up for that. And in the microcosm, when you look at that play on its own, it's like, okay, well, that's annoying, but that shouldn't affect the whole game. But I think that really just spelled like that's how frustrated he was getting. It was like, we're not getting the same, in his mind, they're not getting the same respect that Jamal's getting on the other end or the Nuggets are getting. And so it did kind of boil over. I felt like it really just took Jaden out of the game. I mean, he finished the game just, I think he only scored 4 points in the second half, and he only played 6 minutes in the fourth quarter. It's pretty inefficient. You could have made a case. You probably should have kept Io in there instead of Jaden, because Jaden's perimeter shot just wasn't falling there. And so, yeah, it is frustrating. But again, I don't think, with you, that didn't decide the game, because the Wolves absolutely had a chance, and the refs didn't mess up the two calls where it was if anything, they contrary to fans there in person and on TV, got the calls right on that the non-shot clock violation, and then also the goaltending, which they correctly called on both ends. And I think it really just kind of spiraled out of control. I mean, from there again, Julius Randle, like after that, he almost like intentionally fouls Aaron Gordon by playing like way too hard. It's kind of like a pissing contest foul. Like, all right, I'm going to strip this ball from you. And at that point, I mean, the Wolves were down 7 with a minute 40. It wasn't completely over, but I mean, he just gave them 3 free throws just by playing stupid defense, like overly aggressive to try to prove a point. And at that point, it was over that at that point. So I will say this too, Ryan. I don't know if you got to see it in person, but Chris Heim mentioned it on social media that it was near the end of the game. I think less than a minute left, and there was a timeout. And then Anthony Edwards just kind of heaved a half court shot. And I guess Jokic like grabbed the ball and ran over to the ref and said like, "Hey, like you can't do that. That's like a delay a game, or like that's like unsportsmanlike." And went to the refs, and refs like, "No, like forget about it." And literally on the next play, Anthony Edwards goes like full court. They're already down 11 at this point. Anthony goes full court, hits this little free layup to give him, and then Jokic takes the ball to inbound. He like extends his arms like all the way forward to try and touch Ant with the ball, because he did that earlier in the game that got delay a game whistle against the Wolves. He tried to do it again, and the Nuggets were up like 11 at this point with like 30 seconds left. And I think that's what's frustrating to fans when we're watching on TV. Like, dude, okay, Jokic, you're great. Like, you don't need to do this. Like, you don't have to get every little ticky tack. Oh, well, according to the rules, this is a violation, this kind of thing. And I think that frustrated, I would say, fans like me who are watching, like, come on, man. Like, are you serious? Like, let's just play basketball and not get into this little ticky tack. Like, all right, let me try and piss you off kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's kind of funny that way, that he tries to like find the loophole in the rules or whatever. I thought the delay of game warning they did get was kind of funny. I mean, Ant ran into him. I'm sure Jokic tried to instigate that a little bit, which smart play, I guess. But yeah, I think we're kind of burying the lead here, because I thought the most important aspect of the game was the play of Anthony Edwards. And I thought the biggest X factor in this series is what they were going to get out of Anthony Edwards. He'd missed other than a game here or there. He'd missed basically the last month of the season, cost him All NBA. And to me, how healthy he was going to look in play and how quickly he could get acclimated to the game was going to be the biggest factor for the Wolves winning the series. And I thought this was incredibly concerning in that way. I don't think he looked as explosive as he normally does. I don't think this performance from him tonight, maybe they can win a game or two, sneak in like if Ant looks like this. But like if he can't find another level, if there's no supernova Ant runs that he's done every single playoffs, I think the Wolves are just kind of dead on arrival. And I'm not saying that this performance is like what they're going to get the entire series. I'm more just worried on with where his knee is at and what it seems to be bothering him just from the outside looking in. I'm just not sure that he's going to hit the ceiling in this series that the Wolves need him to hit to beat a team like Denver. Now we asked them about it post game, both Finch and Ant, and they both said physically, both of them. I'm paraphrasing, but like they both said physically, Ant was fine. Ant looked good, but they kind of more pointed to Ant being out of rhythm, and it was more of like a rhythm thing than it was a physicality thing. Let me read what Finch said. How Anthony Edwards, because I think this is kind of indicative of where he's at. So Finch was asked about how Ant looked in game one. He said, normal for what he's been through. So that does not sound like a guy who's 100%. And then he said it wasn't the Ant that we were used to seeing, but pretty much as expected, given where he is with trying to find his rhythm. So that signifies like it was more rhythm based. And then Finch later was asked just directly about if it was physicality versus rhythm. He said, I didn't see a ton of physical limitations. It just looked like a rusty game back. So they're more pointing to it being just a game of rust or like Ant's trying to get reacclimated. So let's start with that. If it's just that, and there is a path forward to him returning to closer to 100% of what he is, then I think the Wolves do have a path to win the series if Ant has like that supernova ceiling. Before the series, if you would have told me that, I would have said the Wolves do not have a lot of margin of error to win this series. And so if they're already not getting 100% Ant out of the gates, that's incredibly concerning. No matter how you spin this, whether it's rhythm or physical limitations, I think this performance from Ant is not a great sign. I thought he's okay. And then so let's set that aside and just say obviously the rhythm is part of it. I thought physically he didn't look 100% either. And just kind of poking around, talking to people, they seem to indicate that too. That I'm not sure the team thinks he is 100% either. Maybe that's incorrect because in the media sessions they said otherwise, but that's just my impression watching him and talking with people. And so Ant goes 22 points, 7 of 9 from the field, 2 of 9 from beyond the arc. The fact, to me, the way he struggled in this game, the areas where he didn't play well are the exact areas a guy wouldn't play well with a knee that's bugging him. He wasn't able to find his jumper. I thought on screens, he was, especially early in the game, he was just like 10,000 miles out of the play. Like he was just getting screened absolutely into oblivion, which against this Nuggets team is defensively, I think is like the biggest factor. You cannot get stuck on their screens. And the areas where he did play well, I thought kind of indicated like those are the areas you can play well, even if your knee is bugging him. I thought playmaking wise, he was awesome. He was really good in this game, specifically with finding Gobert, who we'll talk about later. But the Wolves only lost by 11. If you told me they lost by 11 in game one, I'd obviously go, that's not good, but like, it's just one game. And if they lost by more than 20 or whatever, then it would be more concerning than this was tonight. But I thought given they lost by 11, this was a loss that, as 11-point losses go, was incredibly concerning. Yeah. And Ant's health and rhythm and all that, I think, are the biggest focal point of that.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you didn't see the game, you look at the box score, you chalk it up as a bad shooting night, right? I mean, 7 for 19, but he had 9 rebounds, 7 assists. Like, oh, he almost had a triple-double. You know, it's like you would imagine, oh, he must have been moving well enough to grab rebounds and all that. But again, from the broadcast, just watching on TV from home, they constantly were pointing out, and the camera was cutting to Ant wincing and kind of grabbing at his knee, even from the first quarter. I think there was a play where he went up and he missed a shot, I believe, or got pushed out. Though it was a loose ball situation. I think Christian Brown kind of crashed into him, and Ant kind of fell down, and took a while for him to get up. And they kept kind of pointing out, like, Ant is grimacing, and he's kind of grabbing at that knee. And so you see it, like you said, Jack Borman called it out on Blue Sky as well too, that Ant is just you want to say that maybe it's just him getting lost in the normal way he does off the ball on defense. But really, it's just he was not moving well out there. So what guys are, like you said, running around screens, he wasn't staying connected. He was getting just kind of caught behind like one screen. He's kind of out. But you kind of see that still straight line drive. Kind of power athleticism that he still has. He had a lot of impressive finishes when he went straight through, attacked the rim, and just kind of went straight up and finished, through players. Like he still has that, but I think it's the running around and the cutting and the navigating your hips a lot. I think that's what was difficult for him, and that's really comes out in the defensive end. And so yeah, I do think that it was concerning. I mean, some of the notes that I had in here for Ant, I mean, it took him 6 minutes to get his first shot, which was, a three. But everything else just came up really short. Even his layups came up short. I think one of the telltale signs was, I think it was in transition at one point. It was a 2-on-3 or 2-on-1 or 3-on-1. He goes up for this layup that generally he would either dunk it or it'd be an easy finish, and he just absolutely came up short. He just kind of short armed the ball, the shot going up, and I think that was like, dude, he just does not have that explosion that normally he would have to go through that. And so he had some good pushes here and there, but he hit a three, I think, late in the fourth quarter to cap off a 10-2 run. And so, he had his moments, but I think if the Wolves realize and he knows that he just cannot be that same type of downhill, like kind of cutting back and forth and all that, he's going to have to hit his perimeter shots and to have like some semblance of anything effectiveness to help turn the game. Because if he's out there as a decoy and he's not offering much on defense and he has to bring it on offense, if he's not driving to the lane hard and drawing fouls, which may be hard for him, and landing hard, he's got to hit his threes. So yeah, I do agree that if Ant, it really is hampered by as much as it looks on the TV and how much you're saying, or rumors, whispers we're hearing here and there, then it's going to be a really long series. But as you can tell, even today, the Wolves still had a chance to win the game even with the limited Ant. And you would imagine that in an ideal situation, he's going to get better from here. Like you said, if Ant and Finch saying that it's just a rhythm thing and it's just kind of getting his cardio back and all that, if that is, and that should get better as the series goes along. But he's getting worse and he's not getting better, and that means physically there's something wrong for sure.
Yeah, and I'm trying not to break down the regular season because there'll be plenty of time for that. But it's kind of one of those games where it's just like, man, the Wolves had won 3, 4, 5 more games like they probably should have. This would have been a much easier playoff series for them. But they weren't doing it, and they're playing as team is hot. I mean, I think that's 13 straight wins dating back to the regular season for Denver. They're just incredibly on point. I thought, kind of thinking about what players said after the game, I think they have the utmost confidence that they can come back and win this game, or win on Monday and do what they need to do. I think they're far less doom and gloom than maybe we are as fans or media about that type of performance. I tend to agree with them on all areas except for Ant. I'm incredibly worried. That was my biggest thing I was first watching in this game, was what did Ant look like? And like you mentioned early on in the game, there was grabbing at the knee. He doesn't seem right. And that's a bummer. Obviously, if it costs them the series or a chance at the series, but I think it's in maybe even bigger bummer. Just like trying to figure out just how good this team is. Because unfortunately now they're 83rd regular season postseason game combined. It's still kind of puzzling where this team is at.
Yeah, we'll see how far the team goes, because as we all know, the team will go as far as Ant can take them sometimes. And that's really going to be put to test in the series. So as we move through this episode, Ryan and I, we're both going to each pick out one negative takeaway from this and one positive takeaway from game one. And so, Ryan, what was one negative? We'll start negative and end positive. So, Ryan, what was one negative takeaway that you had from this game?
I thought Julius Randle just had a very, very poor game all the way around. I think the biggest thing is he had 0 assists through 3 quarters. To me, it's always the biggest thing with Randle, is like when the ball is moving and when he's part of that ball movement, things look great. But when it's not, it just looks ugly. And I asked Finch after the game I just asked him that, like, hey, Julius had 0 assists or didn't have any assists. Like, is that something you need to see from him more? And Finch said, yeah, I thought I thought a lot of guys could have had more ball movement, not just Julius. And that was a big. Finch has done this all year. He. It's one thing to be unwilling to like criticize Julius in the media. I totally get that. Like different guys need different things, but like in this case, like it was just like immediate switch to like it's not just Julius. And I don't know how you watch that game and not go, they need more from Julius Randle. The guy that we saw from Julius in the first three month or really like 2 months of the season has just not been there for really any of this season. And something I wrote down in my notes was like, is Chris Finch going to go down with the Julius Randle ship? And maybe a side question to that is, can Julius start to play better? I'm fairly pessimistic about that. So I kind of go to the first part, which is like, dude, if you're going to keep playing this guy, like it's going to continue to reflect poorly on Finch. Now, well, I don't want to steal your player or whatever your negative is, but like, I'm not sure they had a better option than Julius down the stretch, which is also kind of an indictment on other players on the roster. But I thought Julius playing, let's see how many, 31 minutes. I don't think he played well enough to earn 31 minutes. And maybe there's their only way to winning this series is by Julius playing well. So you might as well play him. I don't disagree with that. But at a certain point, like it's been 2 seasons of this now of up and down play for Julius. And he is never the one that loses minutes. And it's kind of been puzzling, and I don't know. I'll save the offseason stuff for then, but like if we're doing thumbs up, thumbs down on who to keep for next year, it was a big thumbs down game for Julius, and I felt like their best lineups are sometimes with him off the court, and so I wonder if that's a string that Finch could pull, but unfortunately, it just doesn't feel like he's willing to go that route.
Yeah, I think the whole Julius thing is really rough. I think a lot of us were hoping and praying that we'd have a good Julius series here to start, especially with Ant seemingly not himself or still trying to get a rhythm or not healthy, whatever it was. But we did not get that today. He's just been really bad from beyond the arc. I think is something that's been really rough as well too. Just like not smart selection, especially in that second quarter as it got away. He took a couple unnecessary step back threes. I was kind of, what are you doing here? And just no resistance on the defensive end as well too. I think some of us thought maybe Julius's strength could guard Jokic a little bit better, but again, Jokic shouldn't have a great night, but it wasn't because of Julius's defense. We saw a little, like you can even call it a glimmer, maybe, of Julius playing well to start the fourth quarter. I mean, he scored in isolation, and then he drove again and found Rudy for a nice drop off for a dunk. And we're like, okay, well, like maybe we're gonna get something here, but just immediately, kind of the Wolves went away from that, and we just not get like a good Julius game for the rest of it. And what's kind of frustrating too, Ryan, I think a lot of us Wolves fans or media that have covered them is that you think of Julius and you think of who kind of comes off for him is Nas Reed. And they're both just so similar. Obviously, they're very different players and they play different stylistically, but they're very like glass cannon type power forwards. And Nas was also just kind of off tonight as well, too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he did hit a three, but he just kind of does that thing that Julius loves to do, is just driving headfirst into piles of defenders and just like carelessly turning the ball over. That happened a lot for them today. And so it's rough because those are the two guys that the Wolves spent a considerable amount of money and their future cap to sign. And it seems like they both have the same holes. If not, they go about it a different way, obviously, but it's rough when like Julius is like this and you also have Nas being, kind of off and just not getting anything from that position. So, but my negative takeaway though is kind of a little bit on the other side. I look at the Nuggets and you think about, well, the Wolves were kind of close and yeah, they lost by double digits, but it was a 2-point game late. The Nuggets shot 27.8% from three. Jamal Murray had 30 points and he made 0 3-pointers that game. He was 0 for 8, and he is probably their best 3-point shooter on the team. And so my negative takeaways, and Ryan, I don't know, maybe, your pre-series research kind of already revealed this. What rank do you think the Nuggets were in 3-point percentage in the regular season?
I know the answer to that one. They were
Yeah, they were
first.
number one in the league in 3-point percentage, and they shot 27% today. Now, this is even considering that you had Christian Brown, who's one of their worst rotation 3-point
Mhm.
shooters, 30%, who made two of them. It should have been three, but his toe was on the line on one of those threes. And so they had that outlier performance from him, yet they still managed to survive that game. So I'm a little bit scared of what it will look like when we get the inevitable Tim Hardaway game, or we have the inevitable Cam Johnson game where they're going to hit 4 or 5 3-pointers individually, or Jamal Murray is at least hitting his normal 3 to 4 threes a game as well too. So the outlier was kind of with the Wolves a little bit on this one. I mean, they ended up going cold in the second half. In the first half, I mean, they were hitting everything. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the Wolves defense on that side of it, because like you kind of prefaced it earlier, just any ball screen just took any point of attack a defender kind of out of the way. And that's what happened a lot in the regular season when the Wolves played the Nuggets, that they couldn't follow Jamal around. They would get lost, they would get stuck behind, they end up fouling him, kind of stuck in jail, whatever the case was. And so I do worry about that end is, can the Wolves somehow survive another game where they survive one game where the Nuggets shoot 43% from the field and you shoot 46%, and you still lose that game. And, they turn the Nuggets over a lot, and the Nuggets aren't necessarily the highest turnover team either. You beat them with scoring off the bench. A lot of things, fell in the Wolves' favor that night as far as the box score goes, and yet they still lost the game by double digits.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess if I'm adding in a negative, another one, I thought they just didn't do a good enough job getting Jaden McDaniels more shots. They talked about it after the game, and it's kind of a theme of this version of the Timberwolves. Like they just don't. I think like he's a much better. I think there's still like an offensive ceiling there that he can improve, and the Wolves unfortunately just don't get enough shots for him. But that, like I said, that's a constant thing. And kind of going back to the officiating, the missed call that the Wolves overturned was insane. I have no idea how that was not called a foul, the Jaden dunk attempt, but eventually got the call right on replay.
So we talked a lot about enough about the negative stuff earlier in the game with Ant, and now Julius, and the kind of shooting variance in the Wolves' favor despite the loss. But Ryan, let's talk about something positive. What's one of your positive takeaways from this game moving forward?
Oh, Rudy Gobert was absolutely sensational in this game. He was exactly every. I thought all of our preseason, if the Wolves are going to win the series, they need XYZ from Rudy Gobert. I thought he did all of that. I thought this was maybe the only other game I can think of that was a better playoff game in a Wolves uniform was Rudy Gobert, was the Game 5 out in LA last year. And even then, like the Lakers had quit on that series that night. Versus a Nuggets team ready for revenge in this one. I think it's a different beast. I thought he did a fantastic job on Nikola Jokic, as good as you can do in that type of stuff. A couple times late to rotate out to threes, but ultimately, what can you do? I thought on that end, and then offensively, I was blown away with what he was able to do. This was again one of the areas where Ant did well, finding Rudy in the pocket, getting him going downhill. It was one of their first possessions, hit Rudy wide open three on that possession. That Rudy Gobert game, like honestly, like if they got that 75% of the time, like that raises the Wolves ceiling so high. It's like you think about the Wolves trying to win a title, like that is the Rudy Gobert they need. So that's as positive. If they get that Rudy the entire series, they can absolutely win this one. The question is can he repeat it? I mean, I don't see why not. But that by far, I thought he was the best player for the Wolves today, and during stretches, maybe the best player on the floor for either team. Yeah, that was to me clearly the biggest positive of the game.
Yeah, I mean, Rudy Gobert goes 8 for 9 from the field, and he also got an award during this last week for leading the NBA in field goal percentage. So he kind of proved that, and really took it to Jokic. I mean, there was a lot of plays where he was legitimately challenging him and like finishing tough shots. And I think that was really, really awesome to see. Again, like, can we rely on that? I don't know, but we were trying to be positive. Like, yeah, I mean, this is a great way to get him involved. And like, because of that, you saw the Wolves still hang in there and have a chance. I mean, he was sitting where he needed to be. And even, without jumping too far, into his offense, I mean, his defense was excellent. I mean, he had that play that I think was one of the highlights for the Wolves that first quarter, and kind of a microcosm of how well they were playing when he was isolated. Jokic had him one-on-one. at the free throw line. We know usually how that happens. He pokes it away once, Jokic gets it back, goes away, pokes it again twice, and then strips them again at the very end and leads to points on the other end. So that was really, really great. I loved how Rudy goes. My positive though, I'm kind of lumping Dante in them with it, but it's the bench. The play of the bench did come through. Now I did talk about Nasri's struggle. Bones Highland went 0 for 3 as well too. But when I talk about the bench, I'm talking about Io. Io DeSumo had 14 points off the bench, 5 for 10 shooting, 3 of 7 from the 3-point line. He missed a pair of tough triples, I think in the third or fourth quarter when the Wolves were trying to come back, but he ended up hitting one later. And I think his offensive contributions are absolutely going to be needed if Ant is not going to be 100%, because we saw what Io can do when he's getting a healthy share of minutes. He played 28 minutes off the bench today, and he was great. And I can't mention the bench without talking about Mike Conley, who only played 11 minutes and scored only 3 points. The man was at like an effective
He was
11
so
minutes
good.
he was out there. Yeah, that first quarter where he was in there and he drew, like, that's really where you felt like, okay, the Wolves might win this game, where he drew that third foul on Aaron Gordon by putting his body on the line, by being there on time early and selling that foul. And then on the other end, I mean, he's just facilitating. He hit an open three. I think in that same first quarter, he stole a pass as well too. I think it was off inbounds or off the baseline or something like that. Where again, he was just so good and just so timely out there. And so I'm not saying that Mike Conley's to do this every night, but the fact that he played so well and Io played so well, and like I said, I'm kind of lumping Dante in there because him and Io are kind of interchangeable off the bench a little bit. Dante was great too. I mean, he hit 2 threes right to start the game. They went away from him in the middle of the game when they kind of fell behind, and came back to him late, and he hit another pair of triples. And I think I talked about it earlier too, that 1-on-4 break that he stopped, and then he saved Ant saved the ball, and Dante just kind of mishandles it, but he goes flying like out of bounds. Like, I know it didn't result in points, but Dante is going to play hard. It was great to see. I mean, I think Candace Parker and Kevin Harlan were kind of going nuts over that play. Like, man, that's that type of hustle. That's a skill. Like TJ McConnell once said in a podcast, playing hard is a skill, and Dante absolutely has that. So I think if Dante can shoot over 50% from three, if Io is contributing off the bench and scoring a lot of points, and even Mike is kind of giving timely things, contributions, I think that's a good sign for the Wolves, because the Nuggets aren't the deepest team ever. I mean, they somehow, Spencer Jones hit a three, and then he also got fouled on a really late call 3-point attempt as well too. Bruce Brown was doing annoying Bruce Brown things, but for the most part, I mean, you take that Wolves bench over the Nuggets bench. So yeah, it was good to see that.
Yeah, I love the call of Mike. I thought he was just classic Mike stuff in this game. Hit a 3 later. A really good Mike Conley game. I don't know. He's played fairly well since rejoining the rotation when guys got hurt. I think that I don't think this will be his last NBA year. To me, I don't know if he's back with the Wolves, which would to me be the most obvious spot for Mike. Like, I don't know if he'd be in the rotation night in, night out, but like, I don't know, like a slightly a Joe Ingles role, but not quite so buried on the bench as Joe. I don't know. I think Mike can do that. But yeah, like you mentioned, the bench, aside from Nas, like, it just kind of makes me think about this game where it's like they got everything you would want from, except for their top 2 offensive guys. Like Ant and Julius just weren't good enough in this game. And you compare that to what Jokic and Murray were able to do, and they didn't even have, like, they've had better games. Jamal Murray is having 16 free throws is incredible. Incredibly annoying, obviously, but I thought most of them were correct calls. And then Jokic only scores 25, but like those guys were in control of their team's offense from the entire game. And the Wolves 2 guys, and this has been the case basically the entire season, like they just weren't. It was just the offense. I thought down the stretch of the game was the perfect example of this. Nuggets were just they shot 1 of 16 or 1 of 17 in the second half, like you mentioned, but like they were getting open look after open look after open look, and the Wolves just weren't. And the Wolves' clutch time offense has always been built around Ant, and he was awesome in the clutch this year. But if he's not going to be able to rise to that level, it's like I'm not sure how the Wolves are going to pull out any of these close games.
Yeah. So there's plenty to talk about that, but it's just one game. And as they always say, the series doesn't start till the road team wins or the home team loses. And so as we move forward, I mean, we have game 2 coming up here on Monday, I believe it is. And so, Ryan, what is one of your most interesting storylines or most interesting things to watch moving forward here in game 2?
I just think it's Ant. What does Ant look like? Is he is he going to look like this the entire season? Is he going to, or series? Is he going to be able to find his rhythm as Finch and him said? That's just like that's like keys to the victory or whatever. That's like 1, 2, 3, and 4. They need Supernova Ant, because like we mentioned this earlier. Like I don't think the Nuggets threw their best punch tonight. I think they can play a whole lot better than they showed tonight. And so I think the Wolves' margin of error was already really thin coming into this series, and so to see Ant not look 100%, that's just like the first thing I'll be staring at Ant to start game 2.
I agree with you. I think that's definitely the number 1 through 4 storylines moving forward here. But instead of sounding like a broken record, is saying that as well too. I think the other thing that I think I'll be looking forward to is, or maybe not looking forward to, is the play of Julius Randle. Because I think a lot of people have talked about, has he been in this weird funk because it's just Julius Randle and that's how he is? Or has he been in a weird funk because he knows that maybe his future is not in Minnesota this offseason? I don't feel like that's how it works in the NBA. And I would feel like if you're a professional basketball player and you're all NBA player, you can't let that get into your mind. Okay, well, I'm just going to, play half-hearted out there. So I'm going to be really intrigued to see, like, is Julius Randle going to stink it up, moving forward for the rest of this series? And if he does, and like, you could say maybe that's a good thing, because that'll mean that Tim Connelly will have to try and move him. Now, is that going to kill his value and he won't get much back? Maybe just selling him off, for a, quarter on the dollar, it might be, what's best at this point with him. But yeah, I'm really curious to see, like, what is Julius going to do? Because if Ant is clearly, let's just say worst case scenario, this is the best he can play. Ant's going to be, he'll have some bursts here and there, but he's not going to be able to, score 30 points reliably. Then like Julius, like, you have no excuse for saying like, oh, why can't you get touches? I mean, we lauded him for how well he played early in the season when Ant was out of the lineup and Julius was playing great as like the main focal point of the offense. But if Ant's going to be limited and Julius has to look like he's going to be the primary option, he has to do better. And like you said, and as you asked Finch, he has to do better than just getting 2 assists in the game and not playmaking enough for sure.
Yeah, I guess another thing that comes to mind is Jaden McDaniels. Can he continue to be aggressive with Jamal Murray without fouling him and sending him to the line 16 times? And as well as like the Wolves offense just needs to get him more shots. I thought when he had the ball in his hands, he was finding lanes, he had a bunch of baseline cuts I thought were really nice, or drives, I should say. And then Naz Reid, I think, as much as I don't think Finch is going to end up benching Randle. That's just not something he's done all year, but it would be good to have like a better option instead of, I don't think the Wolves would want to go small either and play like an Ant, Io, Dante, Jaden, Rudy lineup, basically like Jaden at the 4 lineup. So if they are going to switch it up, they're going to need Naz Reid, because as much as, like I said, as much as we've complained about Julius's play, I don't think Naz played well enough to warrant getting that role either. So
maybe we see more Kyle Anderson. I mean, he played 7 minutes and almost rolled, all zeros across the board. But I mean, he had a tied team best plus minus of 0 with Dante and Mike Conley in his limited minutes. And, I think Kyle wasn't awful out there. And again, I think if Julius isn't going to play make and Ant's not going to be able to effectively, play make. I mean, he did okay today, but I think Kyle could be useful out there as well too. It was so funny. I think in the first quarter, you saw Kyle Anderson and Mike Conley get off the bench. It was like only Finch would roll both of them out there at the same time. It was kind of funny. So yeah, I do want to say, I think, I don't want to harp on the officiating, but I'm excited to see which game that Courtney Kirkland will be officiating, because I think that will work to the Wolves' advantage, because they clearly were playing a little bit more physical, or probably overly physical. That's why they got called for 25 fouls versus a Nuggets 17. And I think if they had a crew that maybe allowed a little bit more, quote unquote, playoff intensity, that might work to the Wolves' advantage as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Just every game is a new thing. Just because the Wolves weren't able to pull out game 1 doesn't mean it's over, but like we broke down, still a lot of things to figure out. But yeah, Wolves got an off day tomorrow, Sunday. They will be back on Monday, late Monday night for the Central Time people. God forbid you live on the East Coast and the game starts at 10:30 p.m. So good luck to everyone out there. I'll be out there covering Monday's game as well, before coming home for games 3 and 4, and we'll kind of go from there. But the series looks a whole lot different if the if the Wolves come and win game 2, they've done their job out here in Denver. They get the split and you move on with the series. And if you lose game 2, while that doesn't necessarily put a death knell in the series, we saw it 2 years ago. Nuggets came back from 2-0 to tie it, and they did it on the road even. I think if the Wolves do lose on Monday and they're down 2-0 coming home, I think it's going to be a much different atmosphere inside Target Center. So I've kind of always said this. I always think that the even-numbered games, at least short of Game 7, the even-numbered games to me are always the big ones because, you lose Game 1. Well, if you just win Game 2, you're back even. If the series is tied 1-1 for Game 3, you have an opportunity to come back. But the minute you get to an odd-numbered game, someone's up at least one game. And so anytime a team takes a 2-game lead, that's a big deal. So I'm kind of games 2, 4, 6 are always to me more interesting than 1, 3, and 5. So we'll see if the Wolves can make this a series, or if it'll be closer to, say, 3 years ago where the Wolves went out in 5.
Swept. Yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting to watch. I mean, let's just enjoy the playoff basketball. I mean, if you looked at any of the other games, I think right now as we're recording, the Rockets are in a close game without KD against the Lakers right now. But the other 2 games are kind of blowouts a little bit. So the Wolves, did their part and they kind of stayed close. But hopefully they could do better on Monday.
Yeah, and looking around the NBA, I do think other than this series, I think I'm not sure we're gonna get another great first round series. So I guess we'll see. If the Rockets and Lakers guys are healthy, that'd be a good series. But I still think this Wolves Nuggets series will be the best one in the first round. And I kind of felt like it has a chance to be one of the best first round series of the past 10 years. But at this point, it'll be up to the Wolves to make it so. So yeah, for Leo, I'm Ryan. This podcast will be back after Game 2 in some form.
Get home and drive safe.
Go Wolves.
Ayoo!